Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. We are on day 1000. Was forcibly removed from his barracks room and his life was taken from him in the line of duty on Fort Bliss, and we have not received his remains. Now, he was taken on Fort Bliss. His life was taken on Fort Bliss. This was in Leilani Hart's words, a code red, a criminal activity that was from his chain of command. She really implicated her son, Richard's platoon leader, Dallas Hart, in taking Richard's life. So she did that in January of 2021. So the evidence is out there that this was internal, and of course, their family members, Tavita Nusa, a Fort Bliss CID agent, who had his badge terminated also in 2021, in March of 2021, I believe. And his brother, Solomona Nusa, was the G1 for HRC, to determine where these bodies go, where the bodies go. And so that with the command and the cartel operation that included Bob Moore of El Paso Matters with Manny Chavira, who targeted Richard in 2019. I'm a little bit shaken right now. You can tell because I was just watching the video again of Richard that I've watched I don't know how many times, that I just posted growing up. And he should be alive, right? He should be alive right now. They took a beautiful soul, a hero. He's an absolute hero, sparkling clean. And they did that because he was assisting, really, his whistleblowing reports, his official whistleblowing reports, legally was assisting President Trump and his border policies, his trying to secure the border of the United States. That makes Richard a double hero. I would think that Richard is a triple hero because of the children that he was trying to help. And I think that he did help because the emergency intake center with all of this has been closed down. And the stories coming out of that, it's called the death camp. Hundreds of thousands of children that were being trafficked with taxpayers' money, with U.S. taxpayer funded, through our military base called Fort Bliss. And of course, they have the resources because we love our military, and we give them everything. We give them everything, $1 trillion budget. And it got exploited. It got exploited by the Mexican cartel, who is absolutely controlled by the CCP. And that's not me saying that. That's just me repeating what is already in the news, with everything that's going on in Mexico, going down to Panama, right? So this was a huge criminal trafficking network with military contracts, with El Paso contracts, that was billions of dollars when you put it all together, when you talk about the substances, just those alone, is billions of dollars. I think it was $90 billion. And then you're talking about the human trafficking, and then you're talking about the trafficking of videos, the worst type of crimes against children being filmed. And then you're talking about the weapons and the equipment and the ammunition. The ammunition is a big one. And then you're talking about the fuel trafficking, and then also the human organ trafficking that is coming out right now with this exposure of the funeral cartel network, including the cross-border funeral homes of Purchase Funeral Homes, whose lawyer is Bill Hicks, and they're up to no good because hundreds of bodies were found recently that some of them were as old as 5 years old, rotting at this dumping ground, this narco cartel dumping ground that they labeled crematorium. You should see the picture of it. It's disgusting. And I've been saying it's sacrilege, no respect for Corpus Christi. And the pictures are just horrific, absolutely horrific. And there is a chance that partial remains of our son were there. But then recently, another funeral home was exposed of keeping remains for long periods of time. Both of them, an owner and son, were arrested. There seems to be a real funeral home criminal trafficking network exploiting benefits for burying the dead, and that's cross-border. And over in Juarez, most of all of that money, especially if it was a John Doe, that's how they were exploiting it, saying that these are migrants. And that was coming from U.S. aid. So that's American taxpayer money. Because Americans are so giving, and they don't want people to be piled up like a bunch of fish, like a bunch of logs or whatever, and rotting there. We want people, especially migrants, buried properly. And so USAID was providing those funds. U.S. taxpayer money was providing those funds. And it was being exploited because they were bringing bodies there and not identifying them. And we know that for a fact because my husband went over to Juarez on a tour to the unidentified, 2,000 of them, 2,000. So we're talking about thousands of remains were exploited that they did not do DNA tests on, that they did not want to identify, because to identify, they would not be able to get as much money for them. And so in order to double dip, we believe that they double dipped on Richard, maybe triple dipped, because there's 3 autopsies that we have, that they dismembered him for that reason, to identify him as Richard Halliday in the United States, to impersonate family members in order to cash in on the death benefits and the SGLI through their connections with the VA, and then partial remains as a John Doe in Mexico to cash in on the U.S. aid for an unidentified migrant body. Um, the evidence is pointing to that because of the individuals involved in over these 5 years in this case, um, absolutely involved with the funeral business. Um, from start to finish, from start to finish. Um, a common denominator too is that they are Mormons. A common denominator is that they are affiliated with the United States government somehow in some kind of position. I think there's a real lack of vetting. But when you know that Solomone um, Nusa is to determine sorry where the didn't turn that on. I should have turned that on. Is mortuary affairs, and then you have Amber Chase mortuary affairs, and you have all the families that are involved. Um, you know, absolutely associated with the funeral business and medical business, and then, of course, you have all of the victims from the Walmart mass shooting and Purchase being the funeral home that handled all of those remains, and we know that they were tampered with. We know the death certificates were tampered with. Um, we know that. We know that Mario Raskin Ortiz, the chief medical examiner, is illegal, that he lied. He absolutely lied. He's unqualified to. He's unqualified to be the um, chief medical examiner, and he's up to no good. And he's very, very involved in that Walmart mass shooting, the aftermath. Very, very involved in that. Very connected, participated in that. And we know that he is involved in our son's case. So um, to have two mortuary affair or a medical examiner for those that determine the cause and manner of death and the release of bodies and all of that, and then to have law enforcement in this, and then the news says being family to Leilani Hart, the prime suspect, Tavita Nusa being a prime suspect, Dallas Hart being Richard's platoon leader and prime suspect, and then for James Hart to have the IDS Pablo and the death benefits, the disability benefits board job at the VA there on Fort Bliss, and then the other people coming out protecting that are part of mortuary affairs and funeral homes, um, trying to tamper and mislead and everything. All the evidence is pointing to this kind of egregious fraud, not only the murder of Richard, but then also the egregious fraud on of his remains. And so, all of that has been reported and all of that is coming out. And we have gotten news, and we're going to be looking into it more because it just happened recently in June of 2025. Well, we know that Ernest Christopher Grant was arrested. He was the main mouthpiece for the media about Walmart mass shooting, and with Donna Sifford, that was the big production between the two of them for El Paso Strong, and they were the media sweethearts, especially Ernest Christopher Grant. And we know that he was absolutely up to no good in the whole thing. Absolutely up to no good in the whole thing. And that's going to come out. We have our suspicions of what kind of role he really did play instead of the victim. Did he get shot? I'm not doubting that. But he was not the victim, you know. In my book, that he was just not the victim, because all evidence shows that he played a whole different role in the Walmart mass shooting. So, and so did Donna Sifford, and they're liars. They're absolute liars. Um, and you can see that through the Walmart video that we have put up of Alexander Gerhard Hofmann. We have the raw footage of that. It's absolutely heartbreaking and horrific to see him laying there with only half his head. Um, it was absolutely a cartel hit, and that was the only thing you saw. You really need to watch that video if you haven't watched the video, because it really proves the fraud that has been perpetrated against us. And you have to remember that Michael Mayella Jr. was in the Walmart cybersecurity, which is all of the CCTV footage that we should be able to get. Um, and somehow we're not getting it. And um, him being in the FBI and in the DA's office with Jaime Esparza, who illegally walked the crime scene um, with Ted Cruz, right? Ted Cruz also, Senator Ted Cruz, also up to no good. And they absolutely knew that this was um, not what the narrative said. And Senator Ted Cruz absolutely had an obligation to have a congressional hearing on this Walmart mass shooting, because it was used to attack President Trump and his reelection campaign, and also um, gave a big green flag to those that wanted that continued onward from the Walmart mass shooting to target Richard, to target him, and to destroy his life and to take his life. And so it all fits together. And now, because all of this is coming out, we're getting information that Leilani Hart is not showing up anywhere. I wonder if she's afraid of being arrested, because she absolutely needs to be arrested. She needs to be arrested right away. And we're getting word that she's afraid to show her face, that she's afraid to go into public. Um, she should be afraid, absolutely, because she needs to be arrested ASAP. There is no reason with her confession to the facilitation of child exploitation and the worst crimes against children, and the possession of videos of the worst crimes against children, about the failure to timely report the worst type of crimes against her own children and her family, between the family members, which is illegal. Um, uh, she should the absolutely be afraid to show her face. I wonder if she's a fugitive. Ernest Christopher Grant was arrested as a fugitive. You have Danae Katzen, a fugitive. You have Jonathan Caleb Ambrose, a fugitive. And now, is Leilani Hart going to be a fugitive? It seems like this is the pattern for this. But things are heating up, because you see that they're even talking about um, raiding a former president Obama's home, rightfully so, for the treason. And it is very emotional, because this is so treasonous, because Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe is so treasonous in this. And that's why Rob doesn't get on these live streams, because uh, he knows the failure of Richard's chain of command, and not only the failure of Richard's chain of command, but that Richard's chain of command targeted Richard, retaliated against Richard, and took Richard's life. And so, and then covered it up and refused to give us our son's remains. Um, yeah. So it's not something that you forget easily. It's not something, we're not allowed to get angry, right? You have to stay very calm in order to get accountability. And I think President Trump has been a great example of that. He has stayed very calm in all of this, and he and his family have absolutely been wrongly targeted. And they wanted to destroy him. They wanted to put him in prison. And for what? For nothing. And that's what has come out. And that Obama led the charge on that. And he needs to be absolutely arrested. There's no there's no doubt in my mind um, that this was an intelligence operation, and in Richard's case, also an intelligence operation, and that they are absolutely intertwined because it's intertwined with the Walmart mass shooting that was absolutely um, weaponized to go after President Trump with a false narrative, absolutely a false narrative, and that Walmart is absolutely implicated in this too because they hired Michael Mayella. They didn't have the security there. Um, and so much that was revealed in the civil case that has been stalled, right? Been stalled because of all the lies and the obstruction of justice. So we're getting just a release of this, a release of the truth about the um, narco cartel dumping ground of rotting bodies, excuse me. Um, the fraud, the funeral fraud that has been going on, people getting um, their urns with animal ashes instead of their loved ones. Um, why? So that they can claim the body of their loved ones as an unidentified migrant, so they could cash in with U.S. aid. This is all coming out, and of course, the PAN party being the ones that are profiting from this. It's the Mexican political party called the PAN Party, which is the party of Chihuahua Governor Maru Campos Galvan. Um, that party is the one that was profiting from this. And of course, that is AG Cesar Hargui. Um, it is really disgusting, and they need to be arrested. If you're from Chihuahua, Mexico, you absolutely need to demand that they be held accountable for what they've done. And it's just sacrilege on the highest level. It's an assault on Corpus Christi, on our Lord, right? On our Lord. Um, so these are crimes that absolutely need to be addressed. And to know that Leilani Hart isn't showing up when she's supposed to show up for certain things, and she's not showing up, um, that means that, well, that's another indication. Just like the arrest of Ernest Christopher Graham. I wonder if they're going to arrest Donna Sifford. And they need to absolutely arrest Leilani Hart. There's no reason whatsoever that they should not arrest her. They have to arrest her because of the crimes that she has absolutely on the books committed, and she's a has a long criminal history. She's a confirmed criminal, and so there's no reason not to arrest her. It's their duty to arrest her, and so we're going to hold them to that. And that's really there's just so much going on, and we're very busy um, documenting all of the tips that we're getting, and filing all those reports. So it's and I can tell you from always having to get on so late, look at it, it's 1 o'clock tonight, how much information we're getting and how much needs to be documented and organized and then filed. Um, and that means that's the indication that things are really moving forward. And for President Trump to put out the videos and the messages that he has put out earlier today, even it was a huge indication that he means business. There is a new sheriff in town. He means business. He wants accountability. He wants people arrested. Um, and he wants justice. And he wants justice for Richard. Because absolutely, rest assured that he absolutely knows about this case and many others, and many others. So, and he has been proven right that the Jeffrey Epstein um, calls for the release of the files that have been so tampered with, right? They have been so tampered with. I think through Richard's case, because it involves Fort Bliss and White Sands, which was bordering on Zorro Ranch, I think Richard's case, as it comes out, will give you more truth to it because we've been on it for so long. Um, uh, uh, Making sure that the narrative stays truthful. I think you're going to get more information from that than you are from the Jeffrey Epstein very, very tampered, very obstructed case. And so I think it is because he died on August 10th, 2019, just 7 days after the Walmart mass shooting. I think it was a real diversion of attention of law enforcement and the intelligence community away from El Paso to New York, and they were very busy covering up for this Walmart mass shooting and the criminal trafficking that it was also diverting law enforcement intelligence from. And even though the FBI El Paso field office had George Toros and Eddie Nieto Jr. That are very compromised. They're dirty agents. And of course, the CID with their dirty agents. Um, but there are those like Julio Cordero that are heroes and that were really focusing on the crimes in the area. And they were suffering retaliation, right? Um, and so the Walmart mass shooting was a diversion for those that want justice and want to make El Paso better. And the Jeffrey Epstein's death was, well, let's just say it was definitely a diversion, again, from even the Walmart um, to New York. So we know that there are bad actors in all of this, but President Trump is saying do not be diverted. Keep your eyes on that southern border. Keep your eyes on Richard Halliday's case. That is the real issue at hand is our national security. We need to secure that southern border. And of course, he's been doing a great job. But of course, there's a lot of tunnels. There's a lot of tunnels. There has been some earthquakes, and I think maybe they're blowing up some of these tunnels. But it's been confirmed that the tunnels are under the El Paso ISD schools, at some of the schools and some other schools too, and they were being used for trafficking. And that's why, they had that opportunity to give the job of chief of police for the El Paso ISD to someone that didn't even have a peacekeeper's license, didn't even go to the police academy beforehand, and they gave it to Manny Chavira, the very individual who targeted, whose family with Bob Moore, and who targeted Richard. So, and also absolutely tied to the Mexican cartel, right? The Mexican cartel and Gustavo Sanchez, the dirty Texas Ranger, and they're connected to Willie Moya, the Mexican cartel. He also, his life was taken from him, shot right in the head, and then of course Arturo Alba too, who also lost his life. So these are all cartel, and now we have the inner fighting of factions within the Sinaloa cartel, and you see that in the news being played out. El Mayo revealing the Pan Party um, uh, of Mauro Campos, the governor, calling her out with police, with other officials for being up to no good with this whole funeral mess. So it is really all coming out. And yeah, so Leilani Hart should absolutely just give herself up, right? Or she's going to be a fugitive, right? She's going to be a running fugitive. Maybe she'll have to go back to, what is it, Western Samoa? Western Samoa. Yeah. So I just want to say thank you, everyone, for always coming on. And I am a little bit um, shaken after watching that video again. Um, and I hope that that doesn't deter you from watching it, to see how beautiful our family is, and how beautiful Richard is and his life, because we need to be shaken to put on our armor, um, to be like steel, ready to take on this criminal demonic syndicate network that took Richard's life, and that who also um, wanted to take away your ability to vote, wanted to affect, and did affect, the election. And that's, uh, you know, then we don't have a country, right? Um, it's just such a violation of human rights and our civil rights, um, and the worst type of crimes. So that's why it's very important to watch this, very important to share this, because we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And so we have a responsibility to demand justice, right? To demand what's right, to demand that our government agencies do their job, and that our military does their job. So we are the ultimate oversight. I guess God is the ultimate oversight, but we are His men, right? We are His, um, and that's why this crime against Corpus Christi is so egregious, and we need to stand up against those who did this and hold them accountable. So thank you so much. God bless you, and I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye-bye. Thank you, Martha, for coming on. Thank you for your prayers for strength and peace. Thank you